Hello YouTube, this is Not a Misfortune bringing you yet another replay of the week for the game of Supreme Commander 2. I am happy to be back this week. I think this is 2 weeks in a row, so I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me. Before we begin, I do want to start doing a little bit of an announcement section at the beginning of each video. It's going to be brief, but I do want to start nevertheless. First of all, you see those scrolling bars at the bottom. Those are there for me to kind of promote my channel a little bit and some of my surrounding kind of communities. So the most noteworthy of the bunch I want to point out is my Discord. Please go ahead, if you enjoy my videos, go ahead and join that Discord. There is a lot of events that I'm hoping to host, community game nights, maybe probably even for Supreme Commander 2. So please join in on the fun, and hopefully we can, this is actually the best place for you to get updates about my videos and other things. So that is basically the main announcement. The other announcement is, if you don't know Mr. Steal Your Girl, he is a wonderful caster. His link to his YouTube is down below, so please go ahead and check him out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this round 11 match from our league, the League Season 1 that is currently going on. This is going to be a match between MauganRa and Rainbows. Now, the map is obviously Emerald Crater. Emerald Crater we've seen a lot before, currently sitting at about 29% pick rate and 48% ban rate. So, fairly unpopular, I would say. Actually, maybe the second most unpopular map after Finn's Revenge. So maybe because of the Cybern win rate, as you can see, 50%, and UEF and Aeon are around the 20 to 30% range win rate, mostly against each other, if we're going to be completely honest, but that is just how that goes. Nevertheless, this map is a UEF versus an Aeon, I believe, if I'm remembering right. So this should not be a straight up, that should not affect the Cybern's win rate, obviously. So let's go ahead and jump into the game. We are paused at 5 seconds as always, because this is a bigger map. I'm going to be on game speed 3. So let us go ahead and press the start button in 3, 2, 1, go. And let's introduce the players. In the top, we have our blue Aeon Commander, a player that we have seen before. She is certainly an impressive player. We have Rainbows spawning as the blue Aeon Commander, starting with a bunch of mass. I think she might have forgotten to build that air factory, because that is certainly something you want to build first. At least one structure before you go into those mass extractors. And she actually abandons building that first mass extractor in favor of finishing that air factory, so that she can start building that first scout. And her opponent in the bottom right, the player, the one and only, the winner of the Serpents Open Winter 2019, currently sitting at, I believe, 67% win rate. It is our red UEF commander, MauganRa, who also opened up with one air factory. However, he went for 2 research stations. You can just see how much more of an efficient of a build order we have here for MauganRa. He is going straight into that research, and honestly, you can already know what the UEF is probably teching on this map if he is rushing research stations. So we will see. I will say that both of these games have a very interesting airplay. They are kind of more of non-standard games, so we shall see. I'm hoping you learn actually some things about air-to-air combat. Now, another announcement that I forgot to say is this league is part of, if you haven't heard of, this is part of the Serpents Championship Series. Actually, there will be 3 leagues, and there will be 4 tournaments, 2 of which we already had. So we had the Serpents Open Winter, and we had the 10th year anniversary tournament. So both of those had points for qualifying for the end of the year championship tournament, and that is going to be the exclusive tournament for the top, 8 maximum, 8 or 16, probably 8 players. So they're going to be the top of the top players that have been playing for a while and doing well in these events. So, but there's still hope for you to join, even though we had 2 tournaments and we had Also, the league is about to end here. We will have another league starting in April. I haven't decided quite when I will be hosting that, but I will be making an announcement in all channels as per usual, but the best, obviously, source for that is probably my channel or the OSS Discord. Probably the OSS Discord, but yeah, so join in and to stay up to date about that, and then there will be a tournament in the summer. So if you really want to prove you're the best of the best in this game, you really should be playing leagues, because leagues give you the most points, obviously because you're playing the most consistently. But also don't forget about the tournaments, because the tournaments are a good idea for getting points as well. And if from the league, you can also automatically qualify if you happen to win the league. There's like a little playoff tournament at the end. If you manage to win it, you get an automatic qualification spot. So that is my little plug. Actually, it's good that I didn't waste time at the beginning, because players are still setting up here. As you can see, MauganRa is actually doing a really good job sending an engineer way up front of his front line. There's a PT here for some reason, maybe because he's seen these bots, but whatever. Nevertheless, protecting this radar. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before. There was a little air engagement, which I believe traded equally, but now Rainbows is doing a very good job sending her bots over here and starting to harass. Unfortunately, she's not going to target fire this mass extractor. She could have finished it. However, she manages to take out an engineer over here, and MauganRa still has not picked up. And of course, as I predicted at the beginning, or as I hinted to in the beginning of the game, MauganRa is going straight for those experimental gunships. Scout is going to get taken out before it can scout that experimental gantry. That might actually prove very crucial in Rainbow's response to these gunships, because obviously she still does not know that this gantry is here. That first experimental gunship is now building. We are 8.5 minutes in, so this is a fairly fast rush to gunships. And on the back end, Rainbows has completely switched out of her air production in favor of 4 land factories. I'm not sure that is actually very efficient play on this map. I know I have talked before about rushing to the center and taking control of it with land factories. However, this is just a little bit too many land factories, and also they're not quite up front where they could be, especially since MauganRa has kind of receded to the back, playing a defensive game in hopes of that snipe. Obviously is what she or he is playing for, but Rainbows is doing a really good job spreading out everywhere and just making mass extractors. She's building a couple of anti-air towers. I would say that is a little bit more of a mistake here, because obviously she did not see any bombers from MauganRa, so that's not really gonna help her against that, and it's certainly not gonna help against this any amount of gunships, I should say, because well, they just don't do as well, because gunships are OP in this game and should be banned for life. Scout is going to finally go through, and Rainbows, if she's paying attention, should be able to see these experimental gunships. And at this point, MauganRa realizes that his opponent knows that he has experimental gunships for now. Now, definitely knows that he's going to send out that up front. Let us see if Rainbows responds. No, she does not. She continues to place down land factories, getting her ACU out a little bit. Nope. Actually going to go to the front, building a shield generator, but that actually does not help against those little gunships that are going to be coming from her. There is absolutely no split on these units, and there's just no anti-air fire, and that is, ladies and gentlemen, the power of scouting, knowing what your opponent is doing and doing a good job early in the game, scouting and responding to your opponent. Rainbows did a really good job pushing up front, but she forgot a crucial part of this map, which is the air component. You need to keep up with your opponent on air. I would have substituted at least 3, maybe even 4 of those land factories. Well, actually, she had 2 up here, so probably 4 or 5 of those land factories in favor of an air factory, a few air factories, so that she could start taking out these expansions, and that would limit MauganRa's ability to produce gunships, because he would have to produce wasps to counteract that just enormous air power that Rainbows has, and would probably fall behind if he didn't continue making air-to-air units. So that is a quick game one. I wanted to show you this one because it was sort of an interesting airplay early on, and then very creative play on MauganRa's part, and I believe it showcases just the strength of scouting or having a good radar placement. So that is game one between MauganRa and Rainbows. We're going to go to match number 2. Stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to game 2 between MauganRa and Rainbows in our round 11 of the SCS League 1 match. So we are going to jump into the game 2. This is yet another familiar map to us. This is Way Station Zeta. Now, Way Station Zeta is a little bit more picked and a little bit more banned than our previous map. We see that it has around a 24% pick rate and a 36% ban rate. So it's been fairly decent, although again we see a 50% win rate for that Cybran player, and Aeon for 25 and UEF for 15. Again though, we don't see a Cybran player on this map, so we are going to have another Aeon versus UEF match. Let us go ahead and jump into the game and pause at 5 seconds. Game speed 2 in 3, 2, 1, go. And let's introduce our players. So on the left we have our blue Aeon commander once again. Rainbows is spawning here, starting with early mass build, and probably going to be plopping down factory right afterwards. That is a land factory, so we'll be focusing on that this time around. Going straight to land, and her opponent starting again with a research station. We have our red UEF commander, MauganRa. Both players doing a good job sending their engineers out to start grabbing those mass extractors. And actually, Rainbows is grabbing a research station. Now, the only comment I have about that is that in general, if you are going a research station, and you should really be deciding what your strategy is before you start a match, there really isn't. I mean, you can see what your opponent is doing based on the score, but it's not a sure way to tell because those scores are pretty relative, so it's pretty hard to know unless you're really good at reading that, and I'm not even sure if the great players like Polar Bear can read it accurately 100% of the time. Anyway, you should have a strategy going into the match, and really, that is very crazy. Well, actually, I know why he's doing that, because he wants to get as much information as he can, because he is plopping down 2 air factories, 2 late air factories, and we shall see what happens, because Rainbows is also placing down an air factory. But I was saying about this research station, you should really know if you're going to go a research station or not at the beginning of the game. And if you are going a research station, a quick research station, it should be the first thing you build, because obviously its production. You want to get the maximum amount of research points from it that you can get. Usually it's better to get that in favor over the maybe an extra tank that you would get if you would build a land factory earlier. Engineers are doing funky things in this game, as Rainbows is also sending her engineer down the top this time, scouting probably again, but very weird attack pattern here. Well, not attack pattern, but a scout pattern here. I would almost say that it's a little bit too late for this particular scout. However, there is another scout also in the form of a We Do Both coming out for Rainbows. Gonna scout that out, which makes this engineer even more pointless in this scenario. And she sees gunships once again. MauganRa has went straight to gunships, and let's see if Rainbows can respond a little bit better this time. She has built a mobile missile launcher. Now, unfortunately for her, she did not realize that this is a wall that blocks that fire. As I mentioned in one of my first 2 videos, I think, on this channel, that this wall is pretty good for blocking all sorts of fire, including ill-placed MMLs. If they are, certain positions here would actually get blocked by this wall over here. And these tanks are going to get quickly taken out by these gunships, or there is a We Do Both here, but MauganRa has managed to get a land station here. And somehow MauganRa has lost this mass extractor. Did I completely miss those tanks targeting that down? There was a shield around it, so I'm a little... Oh, it was probably the TML. The TML, of course. The TML takes it out. Rainbow's responding beautifully to this by placing down 2 more air factories and building those mobile missile launchers. That is actually pretty good strategy against this because these gunships just cannot counter it early on, and also they are fairly slow. So if she can figure out a way to harass her opponent, she will be very, very good for this game. However, her targets for the TML are a little bit ill-picked, I would say. She does manage to take out that air factory, which actually could be a crucial point, but honestly, I think she would be better suited to try and take out these outwards mass extractors. Now, I'm not sure if this TML reaches that far, and actually, Rainbows is doing a great job sending her air up here, and we're going to bombard this engineer. Hopefully, she can finish him off before he builds this anti-air tower. She should have plenty of time. Oh no, what is she doing? Oh no. Wow, I did not realize this happened when I was quickly watching the game earlier. Meanwhile, the gunships are making their way towards the TMLs and going to take them out very quickly. But MauganRa, realizing that his opponent's air is all the way across now, which is actually perhaps is the reason why Rainbows has pulled back her air forces. But honestly, she probably had a little bit of time left to be able to take out at least that engineer, and then she would have been able to return with her air and start bombarding those mass extractors. I think that would have been a little bit of a better idea there, and I think that engineer was like 2 hits away from dying, and she had 2 planes here on their way back that could have bombed it, and I think she group selected everybody to move them back. So that was a little bit of an unfortunate micro. We see shields coming out again. That is just not really a good counter against gunships, especially those small gunships, because again, they're able to fly straight through it, and if they fly straight through it, they can attack you whichever way they like. Now, as you can see, these mobile missile launchers are also having a very hard time taking out this radar because the center of that radar is a little bit farther up. It is able to, basically it's closer, so the TMLs are not really counting for this wall. You can see the difference that just literally 1 square makes. And these TMLs continue to come out for Rainbows, but they're not doing a very good job at taking anything out. MauganRa now has managed to get sharpshooters out, which means that basically this TML is locked down, and unfortunately for Rainbows, she will not be able to get any more kills with that, most likely, unless she starts targeting these with outlying mass extractors, which it looks like she is going to be doing. She's trying to push up with a couple of units. Now that actually might be a good idea because she realizes that her opponent's gunships were taken out. But unfortunately for her, MauganRa, and I forgot to point this out, I apologize, has managed to squeeze out 5 land factories. Now this is the power of having so much mass that is undisturbed. You are able to build a lot of research stations and a lot of land stations and keep producing everything. So at this point, land is locked down for MauganRa. There's P-shields coming out on their way. Beautiful tech switch from our red player, as there's actually wasps also somehow making their way onto the field, even though that Rainbows has 4 air factories this time around attacking her opponent or producing air forces for her, and still MauganRa's air is alive and healthy. And unfortunately, Rainbows just did not do enough damage early game to be able to contest this game in the long run, because MauganRa is able to utilize the power of those research stations now that are doing work for him. Meanwhile, Rainbows is still on only 1 research station, and actually she did not really grab as many mass extractors as she could. She did such a beautiful job in the first match, expanding everywhere and just setting up a really good base, and I believe she just wasted her engineer early game when I was the one that she was using for scouting. She could have used that better to build some mass extractors here. However, this engineer has made a good headway into this expansion landing here and making mass extractions. Unfortunately, it looks like Rainbows has ran out of energy generators, so she's going to have to wait to get some more some more energy, which she's going to queue up in an additional air factory. However, at this point, I would be very cautious because these sharpshooters are on the way to ground-based those upgrades on the tanks for anti-air fire, and that is just going to clean up everything for Rainbows. And she must have realized that her opponent has shields, P-shields rather, and there's just no land coming out. There's nothing that would be able to break these shields. This amount of shields will not be broken by this many tanks, and honestly probably won't even be broken by this many planes. It's just so many P-shields that are, again, another broken unit for a very broken game, I suppose. But nevertheless, there are ways to counter it. You just have to account for it. Shajas are certainly a good pick here, and we actually see Rainbows going gunships here, which is not a bad idea because her opponent went land, and she does have that air advantage. Well, not anymore, because as I said, MauganRa was on the way to getting that anti-air upgrade, and Rainbows even realized it because she continues sending her air units over this air force, or over this ground force, which is continues firing on it. She does not manage to take out very many units here as her gunships continue to fall. However, they do a good job of lowering their shields. Unfortunately, Rainbow's land force just melts away. There's more tanks for him, and more just everything at this point. And Rainbows does end up losing her entire land force and a significant portion of her air force. She is finally expanding to these mass extractor points down to the north. Or she's missed a mass extractor down here, and she's about to lose her main mass extractor expansion. Meanwhile, there's another force assembling in the front base with just a ridiculous amount of P-shields that are just insane. There's a TML coming out here, which is actually not a bad idea to start taking out these mass extractors. Unfortunately, again, these walls are just insane. This is not an ideal map for TML, I would say, because of these walls and because of these great distances between the bases. I, again, don't think this TML can reach all the way over here. However, it can reach over here, so I'm not sure. Wait, actually, not here, but probably here it can reach. Unfortunately, again, for Rainbows, this land force is now making its way to the expansions that Rainbows has built down to the south, and this base is not going to be able to contest that, unfortunately. TML fire coming out, or say MML fire coming out now, and MauganRa just feels extremely comfortable moving his forces around the map and going to continue harassing everywhere, because he knows that these P-shields, especially if he combines these two forces, will not be broken by anything that Rainbows has, especially these gunships, because they will most likely be taken out by the ground anti-air fire that he has based on the research that he has chosen. MauganRa once again proving that saving your research points and using them very smartly is one of the most important things in Security Commander 2, because even though we have all of these overpowered units, again, MauganRa went gunships, but there was a counter for that, so he tech switched. Even though there's all these overpowered units, especially even though Rainbows is using gunships herself, it really doesn't matter if you spend your research points wisely and you counter what your opponent is doing. You can counter pretty much anything if you do it early enough. That is why scouting is very important. That is why saving your research points is very important. You cannot let your opponent control a significant strategy that is deemed OP in this game, because if you don't respond to it early enough, you will lose out the game for certain. Now, we do see a lot of gunships here, and I would say this is generally a deadly number of gunships. However, we do have to realize that there is a air force here. MauganRa does have a whole bunch of research stations, which allows him to get the upgrade, anti-air upgrade here. Now this part is very important, so I'm going to slow down it back to 0 because we have both forces making their way down into each other's bases. So what I was saying, this anti-air fire is going to prove a crucial role here in defending against this attempted snipe. MauganRa also has enough research stations to get Honker on her ACU, which is slowing down this raid significantly. Now, unfortunately, there's just so much ground fire that this ACU is just not losing enough health here. There's just so much anti-air fire, and again, there's just I'm surprised, even though it's 21 minutes into the game, at how much research points MauganRa was able to get this game. And that is just a byproduct of Rainbows, again, not doing enough in the beginning of the game to counter what her opponent was doing. She countered the gunships, but she went TML, and that TML did not pay off for her. Nevertheless, that was a very good match for Rainbows, a very good 2 set of matches, a very good initial response, but the follow-up just a little bit lackluster, and MauganRa just pulling off a couple of very, very wise moves, definitely showing why he is the Serpents Open Winter 2019 champion. For sure, one of the best players, if not the best player in Supreme Commander 2 right now. MauganRa, definitely very, very well played. And that is our match of the week. I'm going to jump to the leaderboard here. Now, I do apologize. You're going to see probably the screen blink a little bit because I forgot to pull it up when I started the video. Anyway, we have Alpha Hex remaining at the top of the bracket, but we do see a couple of changes in the rest of the table, notably MauganRa and Hope changing positions. Unknown Desire slipping out of that top 4 as we really expected because of his lead in games on the rest of the players, and Jaywick slipping down 1. Unfortunately, we did have another 2 players, or maybe 1 player since we last spoke, drop out of the league, which is very, very unfortunate, but nevertheless, we do have still plenty of players left in the league, and every single position, well, actually, it depends on where you are, but position on this table does matter again for that final championship qualification. So if you can get even one more spot, depending on where you are in the table, that will give you just a little bit more points, and you might be able to qualify at the end of the season. So that brings us to the end of week probably 11. Yeah, something like that. Week 11. So that has been very exciting. We have just 3 weeks of the main league left, and then we have 2 weeks for the playoff that I mentioned earlier. So this league will conclude very, very shortly. I'm very excited, and again, if you've enjoyed this video, if you've been watching this for a while, please do subscribe to my channel, leave a like and a comment, and don't forget about that Discord server. Please join in and participate in my community, and check out some of my other videos. Again, I don't just do Supreme Commander 2 videos. I post different strategy games, for example, Sins of the Solar Empire. Great strategy games, even might be better than Supreme Commander. Unfortunately, it's quite a bit longer, so that's why it doesn't get played as often, but definitely a good game. And Phoenix Point is currently what I'm playing, so please check those out, or any other videos that I have posted, and participate in my channel that way. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in a video soon. Have a great day.